So first of all, please introduce yourselves and very briefly tell us what you do for a living.
My name is Joan Kelly. I am a nurse for 50. Oh, sorry. I've been a nurse for 50 years. I hate to say that. 49 of them have been in transplant. I have had the honor of working with Dr. Hardy for the first 42 years in transplant, along with Dr. Cohen, Dr. Crew, Dr. Ratner, and now I have the honor of working with the NYU bunch, Dr. Montgomery, Dr. Ali. So I have now survived 2 interesting surgeons that came from Johns Hopkins. Right. 3, if I include you.
Survived. So tell me, what do you do?
When I was at Columbia, I was in charge of the program. In my retirement job now, I only do pre-transplant evaluations. We are the satellite part of NYU's program, only see patients out at the Winthrop location on Long Island. And what I'm told is that we represent about 30 to 33% of their kidney volume, which we're very proud of because it's like 3 or 4 bodies that pull that off.
But you really tell patients what to do.
Yeah, we have, yeah.
Pretty much, right? Isn't that sort of a summary?
Well, I do the education piece on the evaluation day, which is pretty intense. And then we are responsible for getting the patients tested, listed, to make sure that they're candidates for transplant. And not everybody is, unfortunately.
And Ann, tell us what you do.
My name is Ann Lawler, and I have been at Columbia since 1991. And I did heart and lung, and I did heart and lung till 2004. And from 2004 until now I've done kidney, liver, and all the other body parts. So I feel very blessed to be here. And I thank Dr. Hardy for inviting me. And it's so nice to sit on this side and look at all you wonderful people. It makes me feel like crying. It's very touching, all your stories. And I've run support groups. I belong to the National Organization of Transplant Social Workers. I've done everything transplant. So you're all
and Ms. Imhoff?
Excuse me?
Sorry.
Okay. Got a mic. Oh, you've got one. Yeah. Okay. So I'm done. Yeah.
So my name is Jamie Imhoff, and I'm an independent patient advocate. So I work with a lot of individuals. Behind me is not quite accurate. So I'd like to tell you about me. I have a family that lives inside of me. I have a Kiki, which is a kidney transplant. So something I highly believe in for quality of life is naming your organs that you obtain. So I also have a liver transplant whose name is Scotty, after my donor, who I actually know. So dual donor, double transplant from Johns Hopkins. I was also in their Delta program. So very unique program in the United States that treats end-stage alcoholism, hepatorenal failure, and they break the 6-month rule. So most hospitals in the nation would not take an individual like me. So in addition to having actual physical ailments, I deal with addiction and addiction counseling, which is a huge thing that's often overlooked in transplant and mental health.
So perhaps I should start with the questions with you, because you're the most complicated.
I am very complicated, yeah.
So in very few words and very simply, will you tell us about where you sought your help and how did you find Hopkins rather than Columbia or whatever?
I didn't find Hopkins. They found me.
They found you.
They found me. An ambulance.
Are you from Maryland?
I am. I'm in Baltimore, Maryland, but an ambulance in the middle of the night, by the grace of some higher power, took me to Johns Hopkins Bayview Hospital. There, I resided in a coma the next day for 6 weeks straight. And all this process for liver transplant was done without me being aware of it.
Well, that's a nice way of doing it. Then you're not worried. And what about the kidney that followed?
So because I was in multiple organ failure, just to make it simple. My kidneys did bounce back at transplant and collapsed 2 weeks afterward. And through a very complicated time period, over 7 months, we ended up staying with Hopkins to try to rush a safety transplant, a safety net kidney transplant along. It would be too complicated to move care and still make that criteria.
I see.
And plus, they're fabulous.
Now, just turning back to Anne, can you tell us about the psychosocial contraindications that the social worker is really alerted to? And if any contraindication that maybe your partner next to you may illustrate that.
Yes.
How would you have managed her?
Yeah, we do social work here at Columbia. I'm saying here, I know it's NYU, but we do psychosocial evaluations, and we look for contraindications. And it's very, very important, as you just were told, to have support, to have family support or friends support. And because we have so many patients, we aren't usually able to provide the long-term kind of support that you spoke about and that you talked about. But when I was on the heart team, the program wasn't as big, and I did run a support group and had family support and also patient support. So we did all do that, but the kidney program is way too large, unfortunately, to provide that. But we look for addiction, and we look for, let's see, I took a few notes, and all the psychosocial factors that would interfere with successful outcome. And social work is a very important part of the outcome because we do help repair the contraindications. So I have a little story. Can I tell it, Dr. Hardy?
Sure.
Yes.
Quickly.
So I quickly. Okay. So I have a little story. We had a living donor who came from overseas to donate to his brother. And he brought his daughter, his 6-year-old daughter, with him. It was during the summer. And he brought his 6-year-old daughter. And then when he got here, we discovered he had COVID, and it had to be delayed. His surgery, we couldn't go ahead with the surgery, so it had to be delayed. And the social worker, that would be me, got free tuition at the local Catholic school because they were Catholic and they wanted to do that. So I got free tuition. I was able to get uniforms, books, transportation, everything she needed. And they were so happy. They were absolutely thrilled. And they stayed as long as they needed to stay, because she wasn't going to miss her 2nd grade. So
the social worker, excuse me. So the social worker's job is not only for the recipients, but also for the donors. So the whole combination is treated as one unit, and your job is to address that kind of problems.
Yes, I did actually. We do the donors separately from the recipients, and I did the donors for many years, and then I switched over to recipients. So, and now I just retired in October. So I'll miss you.
So, Joan, maybe you can answer this. Is there anything that a transplant recipient following a transplant, long after following a transplant, should not do?
Should not.
Should not do.
Well, they should not stop paying attention to their own results. And I do,
Yes.
to go back to something that is like, really, I think the gist of this is that after a year, you shouldn't feel like you're lost, all right? But I have to tell you, when I first started with you up at Columbia, the transplant program was so small. We were doing what, 25 transplants a year?
50,
we were
25.
everything to these people, and we did everything for them. We made sure they did mammos. We got them to GYN. When they came in and had babies after transplant, you almost delivered a couple of them. We were so involved with them that we literally, they didn't need a PCP. They didn't, because we took care of everything. But that's when we were doing 25 transplants a year. When I left Columbia, we were doing 250, 260, and now NYU is doing 331 transplants. You can't be everything to all these people. So I think at the very beginning, I know at Columbia, before we would get somebody listed, we had to make sure that they had a referring nephrologist that was going to follow them after the transplant, because there's a lot of people, especially in the city, that don't have that support. They just see their docs at the dialysis unit and they don't even know who they are. So we have to make sure that they establish a relationship with a real nephrologist so that they'll be followed post-transplant. And like what Dr. Ali said about the PCP, that is also huge, because as much as we want to take care of you forever, they just don't have the bandwidth to do it.
Would you not agree that it may be very beneficial for each patient, that it's critical really for each patient to keep their own record of things that are going on?
Absolutely.
They also have to have a calendar. You don't need a PCP to get a mammogram. You put it in a calendar for a specific month. Once a year, you get a mammogram.
Yeah,
and,
but we're not all real good at doing that.
Pardon?
I said we're not all real good at doing that. You know.
Well, no, that's what you have to. We have to educate them. But they have to have a calendar that tells them that they have to get a Pap smear, particularly, and see a dermatologist. Those are risk factors in transplantation, all transplantation. Mm-hmm. So those are the things that. But what else shouldn't they be doing? How about the diet? What can they not eat?
Well, maybe ask Jamie.
So I think this is my biggest issue. I don't mean to say anything badly about you, but the words, what can we not? I'm just going to say it. So I work with a lot of patients, and I have a very successful program. I mean, guys, I climbed the 250 miles of walking alone. I did 500 flights of stairs last night. The list just climbs on. I went from not even being able to pull myself on the floor to where I am now by what could I do? Okay. What can I eat? I just had a patient the other day call me. She goes, I've never been given a list of immuno-friendly foods, just what not to eat. We all know we're not supposed to eat grapefruit, but what can we do to make ourselves better? What are types of good protein for us? There's a great doctor at Integris. She's a nutritionist there. I get on her twice a week, and she goes on these really interesting lectures about, some of them are really good, about unique things found in certain foods. And then I'll follow back on the types of foods that we can find, like chia seeds have really good for recovery, things like that. I think it'd be beneficial, instead of sending them home with the no list, let's start sending them home with the yes list and let them incorporate that into their lifestyles. Other than just the basic few things they shouldn't have, which are only just a few, how about we work on those and why those are beneficial too?
All right. So in terms of my feeling in this, speaking to patients, is that it's really quite critical for them not to eat certain things. So the no's are as important as the yes, perhaps. Because the yes, they can really eat everything if they want to, except they have to control their weight. But that's another story. But things like raw meat, raw fish, salad bars, those are things that really they should not do. What else can they not do in terms of, for example, if they want to do athletics, they want to run, they want to do all sorts of things. You're walking 250, not steps, you're 250
Miles.
floors or miles?
Miles. But again, I didn't start
so
there.
What can you not do? What shouldn't you do?
Well, that's all depending on the team too, and the patient. And if
there are specific things that I want to point out.
Well, give me one example.
For example, you shouldn't do bungee jumping.
Well, there's transplants who do bungee jumping, though. They get approved from their teams. I've seen the pictures.
Well,
I'm just saying I have seen the pictures.
They can also rip their vessels off.
I agree with you there.
So they shouldn't be doing that.
But in the end, we all say, don't we consult our team?
Yes, you consult your team, and your team generally will advise you not to do that.
Well, I find it's an interesting topic. I used to be a softball player. And so when I told my team after my kidney transplant, I wanted to just do slow pitch. And they said, do you want to lose your kidney? And I go, but then we have basketball players who are playing basketball with a little cup here. Why couldn't I do that?
Yes, you may, but you should not do certain things like that are sudden deceleration, for example. Any kind of trampoline jumping is not good for transplantation because the vessels are fragile. But so those are the points I wanted to get out of this, but I guess I didn't. Pardon?
I think you did. I think you did. I think we have done a very good job in talking about the holistic approach to transplant, right? We talked about it's not just about the drugs, it's not just about the medical portion, but it's also about how quality of life, practical aspects of life. And I think it's also really important to encourage patients to thrive. And I think that's the point here. But I think we got it all out there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.